Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. Today, we're diving into a topic that, well, it challenges nearly everything we thought we knew about human history, our origins, and even the very nature of what we think of as gods. We've received some truly fascinating source material. It's a transcript from an interview with Clif High.
On the Clif High Sci-Fi World YouTube channel.
Exactly, exposing the Elohim with Clif High and Jodan Sather. And it's a dense conversation, definitely thought-provoking. So our mission today is really to navigate its claims, with an open mind. Our goal for you today is to unpack these, frankly, radical ideas, explore the surprising connections the source draws between ancient texts, mythologies, and maybe even modern-day events.
Yeah, it pulls threads from all over.
And we want to extract the most important nuggets of insight, but without taking a stance ourselves on whether these claims are true. So get ready to maybe rethink some fundamental beliefs.
Okay.
Let's dive into the core premise then. The source material proposes this truly radical idea that many ancient texts, ancient mythologies,
Like Greek,
Yeah.
Norse.
right, Sumerian tablets, biblical scriptures, Mayan glyphs, Hindu Vedas, Japanese legends, they're all essentially telling variations of the same basic story.
A story about colonization, but by a spacefaring extraterrestrial species.
Referred to by different names, right? Anunnaki, Acir, or Elohim.
Exactly. And the source suggests these beings, well, depending on the culture, they became known as the gods.
Okay, but what's particularly striking here, you were saying, is the kind of colonization.
Right. The distinction the source makes, it argues this wasn't colonization in the way we usually think about it, grabbing land. It was more akin to farming.
Farming. Humanity as a crop.
That's the idea presented. The Elohim, it suggests, had no intention of sticking around forever. The goal was, apparently, to harvest humanity over a long period, and strategically using specific cosmic cycles, like the Kali Yuga,
Okay, and the Kali Yuga is described how?
as a time of diminution of mental energies in humans. Basically, a period where people were maybe less sharp, more susceptible to control.
Wow, okay. That radically reframes our history, doesn't it, if true?
It really does. It suggests the real power wasn't with human empires, but with these external forces viewing us as a resource.
So this paints a very different picture of humanity's past. The source even talks about evidence of pre-Elohim civilizations.
Yeah, it cites the Harappa Valley civilization, northern India.
And what was supposedly special about them?
Well, according to the source, this society lasted thousands of years. And get this, no war, no weapons, except maybe for hunting large animals. And highly equitable social structure. Shared childcare, shared food distribution.
That sounds utopian almost.
It does. And the source highlights a notable lack of iconographic images, like gods or rulers, just simple signage. And crucially, no mention of a god relationship.
Suggesting a completely different human experience before these alleged Elohim showed up.
Right. And expanding on that, the source suggests the Elohim arrived around maybe 12,000 years ago.
Okay,
It ties this timing to archaeological sites like Göbekli Tepe.
you've heard of that one. Massive stone circles.
Exactly. And the claim is these sites were deliberately buried
What?
to protect them, supposedly, from the Elohim's assault.
An assault, so their arrival wasn't peaceful.
According to this source, no. It marked a big shift. The beginning of war, pillage. And significantly, the introduction of iconographic imagery. Think Egyptian hieroglyphics, Mayan glyphs, representing rulers, gods.
Representing the Elohim, perhaps.
That's the implication.
Okay, so what did these beings actually look like? Are we talking little green men, reptilians?
No, the source pushes back hard on that. Says they were not reptilian, but rather hominids. Like us, but different.
Hominids. Okay. Anything else?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting. A particularly striking claim is that they could project images directly into human minds.
Project images.
It suggests manipulation of human hormones and melanin, making them appear as shapeshifters.
Whoa. So they could look like anything they wanted us to see.
Potentially. And it gets even stranger. The source describes their blood as green and copper-based.
Green, copper-based blood. Where does that come from?
It cites references in Jewish Talmud literature and also Mesoamerican glyphs.
Huh. Yeah.
And adds that they had telepathic abilities.
Yeah.
And could make themselves invisible.
Telepathic, invisible, shape-shifting hominids with green blood. This is definitely not your standard alien narrative.
Not at all.
But the claims go further, right? Not just influencing minds, but the planet itself.
Yes. Beyond their physical nature, the source attributes huge geographical changes to the Elohim.
Like what?
It proposes they were responsible for the rapid freezing of Antarctica.
Antarctica, but wasn't it supposed to have been tropical way back?
Exactly, previously tropical. The source claims they destroyed a landmass that separated South America from Antarctica, changing ocean currents and freezing it fast.
Destroyed a landmass is planetary engineering on a massive scale.
It is, and given that scale, it naturally makes you think about other ancient legends.
Like Atlantis.
Precisely. The source connects this destruction directly to the Atlantis story, suggesting Atlantis wasn't a sunken continent in the Atlantic. It was Antarctica.
Antarctica was Atlantis, a global trading hub for some ancient human civilization.
That's the claim. A hub destroyed by the Elohim, leading to the fierce circulating winds we see around Antarctica today.
Okay, my head's spinning a bit. So, if this is the framework, what about other biblical concepts, like the Garden of Eden?
Good question. The source claims Garden of Eden is actually a mistranslation
A mistranslation of what?
of Gans, or Gens, which it defines not as a garden, but as a force field bubble, a dome.
A force field bubble for what
It's
purpose?
essentially a sophisticated genetic engineering laboratory.
A lab. So, Adam and Eve, genetic experiments inside a dome.
That's the interpretation offered. It says many of these labs, these GANs, were set up globally, one specifically mentioned in Armenia.
Wow, and it even links this to flat Earth theories.
Yes, suggesting the unconscious ancient idea behind flat Earth might stem from a memory or misunderstanding of these enclosed environments, these domes.
Okay. What about the moon? Always a big topic in these kinds of discussions. Did the Elohim bring the moon here?
That's a key point. The source is definitive. No, the Elohim did not bring the moon to Earth.
Oh, okay, so where did it come from?
It doesn't specify, but places its arrival much, much earlier, at least 250,000 years ago, long before the Elohim supposedly showed up around 12,000 years ago.
So the moon predates them, according to this source.
Correct. However, it does speculate that the Elohim might currently be on the moon, or even inside it,
Using it as a base now.
suggesting it serves some current strategic purpose for them, yeah.
All right, let's shift to human origins then. If they didn't create us from scratch, what did they do?
So this source presents this remarkable claim. The Elohim didn't create humans, but rather altered beings that already existed here.
Altered, like genetic modification.
Exactly. It specifies they didn't modify Neanderthals.
Okay, not Neanderthals. Then who?
Instead, they worked with a specific group, a short, brown-skinned people, described as looking somewhat like Mongolians or Koreans, called the Essenes, located in what's now southern Yemen.
The Essenes. I usually associate that name with the Dead Sea Scrolls.
This might be a different usage or context. The source claims they engineered Adam from this existing Essene stock.
Engineered Adam. How long did that take?
Over a period of 191 years, it claims, effectively upgrading or altering a pre-existing human lineage.
So Adam wasn't the first human, but the first of a modified line.
According to this narrative, yes.
What about other figures, like the Nephilim, often mentioned as giants or offspring of gods and humans?
The Nephilim. The source characterizes them as one of the Elohim's genetic, failures. Things that didn't turn out as planned.
Genetic failures. Okay, any other examples of their genetic work?
It also makes a very specific claim about the Khazarians.
The Khazars, the historical group from Eastern Europe, Central Asia.
Yes. It asserts the Elohim engineered and then abandoned the Khazarians, leaving them, it claims, with a unique genetic marker. A short, stubby number 2 chromosome, described almost like a dongle.
A genetic dongle. That's
Yeah.
specific. What's the implication?
The source uses this to suggest the Elohim were, quote, not that good at GMOing, genetic modification.
Or maybe, as you said, intentionally created a distinct lineage for some purpose, then left them.
Could be interpreted that way, too. Either way, it paints them as fallible engineers.
Now, if we accept this premise of ancient interventions, genetic modification, farming, where does that leave us now?
Well, this is where it gets quite dark. The source material posits that humanity is still being farmed, right now.
After 12,000 years.
Yes, it claims the Elohim are still here,
Yeah.
still active, and allegedly harvesting as many as 8 million humans a year.
8 million. Harvested for what?
The source suggests possibilities. Consumption, maybe?
Oh.
Or transporting them off-planet? Or even into underground facilities? It's unclear, but the scale is staggering.
An ongoing clandestine operation. That's deeply disturbing.
It is, and it raises a huge question. If humanity is just a farm, why would these beings bother creating religions? Seems counterintuitive.
Yeah, you'd think they'd want to keep us passive, maybe ignorant.
But the source claims the opposite. that the Elohim deliberately engineered religions,
Engineered religions, why?
describing them as Stockholm Syndrome religions, designed to function as a highly effective control mechanism.
Stockholm Syndrome.
Yeah.
So we come to identify with, even worship, our captors or farmers?
That's the exact idea. And this strategy was supposedly particularly effective during periods like the Kali Yuga.
When human cognitive abilities were supposedly lower.
Right, making populations less able to question or resist. It paints this stark picture of humans, unknowingly or subconsciously, worshiping their farmers.
So how does this alleged Stockholm Syndrome actually work, according to the source? How does it keep people controlled?
Well, it suggests this deep-seated psychological bond, created through religious narrative and ritual, allows for continuous manipulation.
So the religions themselves become the tool.
Exactly. It proposes these engineered religions serve to perpetuate the Elohim's control. They channel human energy, belief, maybe even life force, in ways that benefit the farmers.
So it's not just about belief, it's about resource management.
That seems to be the implication.
Yeah.
Deeply embedded in the very fabric of our belief systems.
Not just cultural practices, but direct extensions of the Elohim's farm management system.
Designed to keep humanity, the herd, subservient and productive. That's the core claim.
Okay, let's get specific then. What about major religious figures? Yahweh, for instance. How does Yahweh fit into this picture?
The source offers a very specific and highly controversial take on Yahweh, describing Yahweh not as the supreme divine general or God, but as a colonel.
A colonel in what army?
Within the Elohim's command structure. It claims there's a 600-member Supreme Council, and Yahweh's like a mid-level officer, a colonel.
Wow, okay, and what was Colonel Yahweh's job?
It details a specific covenant, an agreement. Yahweh was supposedly granted Jacob's tribe as his exclusive herd, his farm division, basically.
See, it's hurt, so the chosen people were chosen livestock.
That's the brutal framing in the source material, yes. And the covenant of circumcision,
Yeah.
described not as a spiritual rite, but as a literal blood tribute, or perhaps an ownership mark, like branding cattle.
That is a profoundly challenging reinterpretation.
Extremely. And in this context, the source presents Judaism not as a religion or culture in the way we normally understand it, but as an Elohim worship cult proxy, and a direct manifestation of that Stockholm Syndrome.
A proxy cult controlling other religions.
It goes further, claiming this proxy that exerts significant control over other major religions, functioning like a central management tool for the entire human farm.
Okay, that's a lot to process. It essentially reframes millennia of religious history as an alien control system.
That's the core argument being made, yes.
Well, then there's a shift, right? The source also talks about an awakening.
Yes. A key aspect highlighted is the claim that humanity is now undergoing a great awakening,
Meaning what, exactly?
suggesting we are actively breaking out of this alleged control, waking up from the farming condition.
Why now?
This awakening is attributed to increased cognitive abilities because we're moving out of the Kali Yuga cycle. There are elevated energies, the source claims, making people smarter, more aware.
And the Elohim aren't happy about this.
Not at all. The source claims this newfound awareness has greatly angered the Elohim. It uses pretty strong language, says they're really fucking pissed.
Why? What was their goal?
That their long-term goal of apparently wiping out 6.5 billion people has reportedly failed.
Wiping out like a culling of the herd.
That's the grim implication.
Yeah.
And this awakening is disrupting their plans.
So if people are waking up, does this connect to things happening now, like all the talk about UFOs, UAPs?
The source definitely makes that connection. This awakening naturally leads to questions about the increasing UFO activity, the military encounters we hear about.
What does it claim is happening there?
It claims the U.S. military is already engaging with non-human objects,
Yeah.
actively, having reportedly shot down over 200 of them.
200. We haven't heard about that publicly.
No. And the source adds, this is being done out of, quote, ignorance. Ignorance regarding a broader solar system-wide political arrangement.
A political arrangement involving who? Other species, the Elohim.
It implies a complex situation that the military doesn't fully grasp yet.
And this leads to a conflict within the system about disclosure.
Exactly. The source describes an intense internal battle for disclosure happening right now within the military-industrial complex.
A battle between who?
On one side, it posits this Elohim worship cult, people within the system who are beholden to these beings, and they're actively working against genuine disclosure by pushing disinformation, like fake alien invasion rumors, or narratives like, all aliens are good and benevolent.
Trying to control the narrative if disclosure happens.
Right, and it specifically names figures like Dr. Stephen Greer,
Known for his advocacy of benevolent ET contact.
claiming he's part of pushing that specific all aliens are good narrative, perhaps unknowingly serving this cult's agenda.
Okay, so that's one side. Who's on the other side?
On the other side, reportedly, there's a growing number of hard-nosed military people, realists, and they are pushing hard for the truth because they fear imminent Elohim aggression. They see the danger.
They think the Elohim are about to make a move.
That's the fear. They believe legitimate whistleblowers like David Grush.
Who testified to Congress about UAP crash retrievals.
Yes, they think people like him, even if they might have been fed some inaccurate details along the way, are part of this genuine push for full disclosure.
Trying to get the real story out before something happens.
Exactly. And the source adds another piece of circumstantial evidence. Major marine-based industries.
Shipping, logistics.
Yeah, apparently relocating operations away from California, moving to the Gulf Coast and Florida.
Why?
Due to anticipated events in the Pacific, events involving unknown entities, suggesting some kind of conflict or major incident is expected there.
Wow. That's a very specific and alarming prediction. Okay, so if there is a conflict coming, what are the Elohim like as adversaries? Are they powerful? Numerous?
Well, the source characterizes the Elohim as actually not numerous, maybe not a huge population.
Okay, that sounds like an advantage for us.
Maybe. But it adds another layer. Due to their extremely long lives, potentially thousands or tens of thousands of years, they're described as becoming mentally unstable over time. Fucking crazy is the term used.
Long lives lead to madness.
And risk aversion. Their minds supposedly rot over time, so they become very cautious, very paranoid.
Okay, so maybe not eager for a direct fight.
Exactly. Therefore, they're expected to fight primarily through proxies.
Proxies? Like who?
Captured, mind-controlled humans. Or maybe other space alien species they control or ally with.
Similar to how they first arrived.
Right. The source claims the original invading force, maybe 250,000 individuals, included only a minor physical component of the Elohim themselves. Mostly proxies then, mostly proxies now.
So we wouldn't be fighting the Elohim directly, necessarily.
Potentially not, or not exclusively. And where are they now? Preparing.
Yeah, where are they based?
This connects back to the moon. The source claims remote viewing sessions.
Remote viewing. Like psychic intelligence gathering.
Yes. Claims derived from that method indicate the Elohim are currently positioned on the moon,
Doing what?
preparing for what it describes as a D-Day style invasion of Earth.
A D-Day invasion from the moon? When?
It predicts open contention with non-human beings by next year, 2020.
Next year? That's very soon.
And it suggests the military will be forced into full disclosure by then because the circumstances will be so dire, so undeniable.
Okay, that is a truly daunting picture. An ancient alien species, farming us for millennia, potentially mentally unstable, but using proxies, planning an invasion from the moon next year. Is there any hope in this scenario?
Actually, yes. Despite how grim it sounds, the source does offer a glimmer of hope.
Which is?
Humanity.
Us.
Now, supposedly out of the Kali Yuga, with increasing intelligence, increasing awareness.
Our awakening is our advantage.
Yes. It suggests we have a genuine chance to be victorious. We can potentially leverage the Elohim's own issues, their alleged mental incapacities, their risk aversion.
Use their weaknesses against them.
Right. We can win, the source claims, but it requires facing the painful truth.
Ripping off the Band-Aid, as it says.
Exactly. Ripping the Band-Aid off our collective past, understanding the real history, no matter how uncomfortable.
That acceptance, that truth, is the key to fighting back.
That's the path to victory presented in this material.
Wow. We have definitely plunged into a mind-bending narrative today. Absolutely. One where our history, our religions, maybe even our biology could be deeply intertwined with this ancient extraterrestrial agenda of, well, farming humanity.
Yeah, this deep dive really challenges us, challenges you, the listener, to look at our world through a completely different lens. What if those stories we call myths, actually contain hidden truths about our past? Deeply buried truths.
And what if the gods weren't divine creators at all, but something else? Something entirely different. Farmers, colonels, genetic engineers. So for you, the listener, we want to leave you with this provocative thought to chew on. As humanity is reportedly awakening from centuries of this Kali Yuga mindset, and as this possibility, however speculative, of open contention with non-human beings maybe looms, what does it really mean for us? For humanity? What does it mean when the farmed herd starts to understand the true nature of their alleged farmers?
What actions might that profound, world-shattering understanding compel us as individuals and as a species to take?
Something to think about.